everybody goes through that personal,
Yeah.
I don't know, search.
Right.
So I asked some of my relatives, when I had some time on my hands, I'd broken my leg, and so I was just kind of sitting and staring at walls. And I asked some of my relatives if they had information about my dad, and within 20 minutes, I got 3 phone calls.
Really?
And it was, oh, yeah, we know where your dad is, and here's his telephone number, and here's his address, and here are your 2 sisters' names, and yeah. So hard phone call to make.
Right.
I, of course, dialed the wrong number the first time, so all the anxiety was totally gone with that.
Right.
And then when I got in touch with him, it was like he sounded like me, and
Right.
of course that's no surprise, right? But I felt like that was the entree I needed to just kind of relax and feel like I could just talk. I mean, he didn't have any of the baggage with me being a teenager, out too late, or
Right.
wrecking the car, or whatever. And plus, I had grandchildren, so for him.
Right.
So anyway, we made plans. I went down to visit. He had lived in Arizona for ever since he and my mother had split up.
Oh, wow.
Become a business owner, a plumbing contractor. He brought out a set of notebooks, binders,
Right.
with newspaper clippings in them of me.
Oh, my God.
My hometown was full of relatives and people I didn't know. And my great aunt Dorothy, who I always just thought was nice Mrs. Moldenauer, would regularly send him things in the newspaper that related to me, right? So he was sort of at a distance keeping track. And so I had these notebooks that were up to 5th grade, and then I had up to 10th grade, and then I had up to high school and college. And my wedding announcement was in the newspaper clippings and so on. So my dad had kept in contact.
Wow.
And in the back of one of the binders, I found my enrollment page. I may have said something like, well, what's this?
Right.
And he explained that when he was coming up in the 50s or 40s and 50s, it wasn't necessarily something you wanted to tell the planet.
Right.
And he was half native.
Okay.
His mother had married a man who also lived on Tahlequah. They were essentially raised together, but he was
Right.
the son of the Indian agents.
Oh.
And so they married. My aunt Ida was born. Oh, I find I have a lot of extended family now, right? So
Right.
my aunt Ida was born. And then shortly before my dad was born, his father passed from tetanus.
Wow.
Because apparently even if you were white, there was no good health care on the res. So my grandmother began cleaning houses and
Really?
to support the family, and cleaned house for this older gentleman named Kip Grosshans, who had emigrated to America to escape the changes there during the fascist rise.
Right.
And he had married my grandmother and adopted my dad and my aunt Ida. So we have this lovely German Jewish name, but we're a total dead end for all the people who are doing genealogical research, because
Right.
nothing else happens with that.
Right.
So started spending time with my dad as much as possible. Took time to go take the family down after I kind of had my opportunities to connect more.
Right.
And yeah,
Wow. What a story.
I know. I know.
It's lifted out of a book,
It should be, right?
And for our listeners, Tahlequah, those people.
We are Tsalagi. We are
Right.
Eastern Band. And there are a lot of my people, my family, still in Cherokee, North Carolina.
Really?
But my grandmother's grandmother was orphaned on the Trail of Tears,
Oh, man.
carried into the Oklahoma Indian Territory by people who perhaps knew her parents, but they both perished. And so she then married and raised and so forth. And my grandmother, Gladys, had the opportunity to get a good education. She went to high school in Miami, Oklahoma,
Right.
because there was no high school on the reservation
Right.
for her either.
Right.
But by the time my dad came along, my Aunt Ida had married and she had finished elementary school and married a gentleman. They lived in California, but when he came up, he had the opportunity to come to Haskell to go to school, and so he did.